Hello, welcome back. We're going to pick up with the rest of Chapter 7, Section 4. So we left off with the pelvic girdle, okay? So your pelvis is basically your whole hip structure here. So you have two hip bones. They're also known as os coxae, okay? This is one os coxa. This is the other os coxa. And then the os coxa are made up of multiple bones. So we have the ilium. Okay, there's two ilium. We call this top part, which is actually what sticks out on your hip. If you were to put your hand on your hip, okay, that's what sticks out. That's the iliac crest, right? Like a crest of a wave, which is the very top of it. That's a crest. So we call the very top of the ilium the crest of the ilium. Then we have the ischium. The ischium is down here. This is kind of what you sit on, okay? This is pointing out towards the back. All right, you have two of them. Okay, then you have the pubis. The pubis bone is right here. This is kind of in the pubic area, right? So kind of at the front end of the bottom of your hip. All right. So we call that the pubic bone. Acetabula. Acetabula. Let me see if I can find a better picture of acetabula. Okay, so I found some really great pictures here. Now, this is the acetabulum. So this is the socket for your ball and socket joint of your hip. Okay, so it's down at the very base of the ilium. Okay, and then you have the head of the femur. All right, right there, and it fits right in the socket. And the acetabulum is the socket. Okay, and there's also this one from the side, right? So you can see the ilium here, and then that femoral head fits in that socket, and then the femur. So I thought that was pretty cool. All right. So then you have the obturator foramen. And then this is that, a foramen is literally a space, a hole. Okay. And that hole is in between the ischium and the pubis, right there. Now, in your legs, okay, one of the biggest bones in your body, this is the femur. That's your thigh bone. And it attaches to your hip there in that joint. All right, down at the very base of it, your kneecap is your patella. Okay, that's what you feel if you feel the front of your knee. There's a little knob there. Sometimes you can move it around a little bit. That's a patella. Then in your lower limbs, okay, this is the tibia, which is the larger one that goes in front. This is your shin bone. And you have your tibia is in the front. Fibula is the supporting bone there. It's a little bit smaller. Okay, that makes up your outer ankle bone at the bottom. Your tibia is the inner or medial ankle bone on the inside. Okay. Down in the feet, you can kind of see it down here a little bit. You have the tarsals, which are your smaller ankle bones. Okay, allows us to rotate and have better flexibility with our feet. And you have your metatarsals and phalanges. So notice how with our hands, we had carpals, then metacarpals, metacarpals, and then phalanges, right? So tarsals, metatarsals, and phalanges, kind of similar. Okay. So we'll talk about joints. This is where two or more bones join. They make a junction, right? So you have like your wrist is a joint, your elbow is a joint, your shoulder is a joint, okay? So there's three different types of joints, okay? And they're held together by ligaments. So your ligaments connect bone to bone. All right, so let me get a good picture of this for you. Okay, so I went ahead and found a joint, an actual joint, a knee joint, okay? So this is a knee, and I don't know if you can see it very well, but from the side, okay, you have ligaments that hold the side together. You have them on both sides, okay? And then on the back, You have ligaments that go across, okay, in there. And on the front, you have this huge ligament right here, and this holds the patella, okay, that's your kneecap, all right, in place, okay? So this is an example of a joint showing the ligaments and what they do. Ligaments are bone to bone. You also have tendons. Those hold muscle to bone, okay, but ligaments are bone to bone. We use, our bodies have ligaments around our joints. So there's different types of joints. Okay, so I went ahead and pulled up your book just so that you can see what I see. All right, so there's diarthrosis, which is also called synovial. Okay, like if you've ever heard somebody tore their synovial membrane, that's a membrane that holds the fluid in your joint. Okay, so but diarthrosis, this is freely movable, like completely movable, right? Like dia is complete, right? Completely movable. So this is like a ball and socket joint of your shoulder, right? Or your hip, or your elbow or your knee. Okay. Now, basically all of your extremities have diarthrosis joints. Then you have amphiarthrosis. When I see amphi, the word that keeps popping in my head is amphibian, right? If you guys know what an amphibian is, like a gecko could be considered an amphibian, where they can live in both water and land, and their body kind of has different, um, just a little bit of characteristics to live on land and a little bit of characteristics to live in the water. So it can kind of go either way. But amphiarthrosis means like slightly. Amphi is like slightly. So this would be things that can move just slightly, like your ribs to your vertebra. Okay. If you breathe, your ribs have to slightly move to be able to pivot to allow your chest to expand. Okay. Those have to be slightly movable. And then your pubic symphysis, or the joints between the two pelvic bones. So especially during childbirth, your hips have to be able to spread, right? There's absolutely no way in the world that a baby can come out of something that big. Your hips have to be able to spread. So that's part of it. Also, your hips shift during pregnancy as well. So those are amphiarthrosis examples. Then you have synarthrosis. Okay, so this is where it's immovable. So some examples of this are the sutures in the brain. So if we go back to the cranium, excuse me. If we go back to this, these are the sutures between the bones in your skull. Okay, and as an adult, they are fused together. All right, they're fused together. So, so those are examples of diarthrosis or synovial, which is like all your extremity joints. Amphiarthrosis, like your ribs to your thoracic vertebra, and synarthrosis, which is where it's immovable. So like the sutures on your cranium. All right. So diseases and abnormal conditions, I really want to cover in class. And I kind of want to do the same thing where we do a little bit of kind of like a Google slide thing again. So we will do that in class. Okay. But I do want to show you kyphosis, scoliosis, and lordosis. Okay. So if we look at this in your book, all right, you have scoliosis. This is where your vertebrae should be straight up and down, not going side to side. There's certain curves that it should have, but these are extreme, right? So scoliosis is where your spine basically is shifted left or right more than it should be. Lordosis is where it's almost like they're pushing their belly out and their butt back, okay? But that's naturally how their spine is, right? So that's lordosis. And then kyphosis, this is a hunchback. Okay, this is where you slouch. If you slouch, this is what position your spine is going to wind up being. So that's a little bit about the your skeletal system. Okay, so we'll go over the the diseases in class, and we'll review some of this in class as well. So hopefully you complete your packet that I gave you. It'll help some of this stick in your brain a little bit more, and I'll see you on Monday.